Yeah, hope it's time for us to start. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Spurana from Bangalore, India. I'm Ayurveda doctor and the yoga practitioner by profession, Rotary Peace Fellow from Class 28 from Chulalongkorn University, Bangkok, Thailand. I welcome the panelists who are here to openly share. Voices like yours are what compelled the Thailand government to take action. On September 16, 2021, the Thai Parliament unanimously approved the first reading of the Prevention and Suppression of Torture and Enforced Disappearance Bill. This was possible by people like you. I extend my warm welcome to the moderator, event organizers, and to all the attendees of this event. Welcome, everyone. This event, bearing witness enforced disappearances, is organized by Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association in partnership with Caged Citizens Against Enforced Disappearances to hold space for people who have witnessed and forced disappearances to share their voice and feelings. The Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association, with its nearly 1,400 members, work to organize Rotary Peace Fellow alumni and increase networking opportunities among Peace Fellows to better facilitate collaboration with Rotary to expand the promotion of peace. Our event partner, Caged Citizens Against Enforced Disappearances from Malaysia, focuses on possible cases of enforced disappearances and police reform. Caged began in May 2017 as a work group under Suara Rakyat Malaysia, a Malaysian human rights non-governmental organization. 6 months later, Caged came under the umbrella of Engage, an NGO which prods and trains Malaysians to be good, politically engaged citizens. Until April 2019, Caged focused on reporting and publicizing the disappearances in November 2017 of social activist Amri Chemat and posters Joshua Hilmi and his wife Ruth Sitepu, and in February 2017 of Pastor Raymond Koh. In April 2019, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, Suhakam, concluded that Amri and Raymond were the victims of enforced disappearance conducted by the special branch of the Royal Malaysian Police. From that time, Caged shifted its efforts to exposing cover-ups of misuse of power by the police and ending policies and practices which enable such misuse, including through legislation. With this brief overview, let me take the privilege of introducing today's event moderator, Professor Kishu Daswani. Professor Kishu Daswani from India has been teaching law at the Government Law College, Mumbai, for over 25 years now. He is a lecturer at the Masters in Public Policy program, Human Rights and Business Law at St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. In the past, he has taught at the University of Navarra, Pamplona, Spain, at the Maharashtra Judicial Academy, Uttan, Mumbai, and at Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia, and International and Humanitarian Law at the Rotary Peace Center at Chulalongkorn University, Bangkok, Thailand. Over to you, Professor Kishu.
Well, thank you, Spurana, very much. I do welcome everybody here on a seminar or a panel discussion that is as important as it is somber. So we are not only going to hear about certain events that definitely will shake our conscience, but also we will hear from the people who have been severely impacted by this event. I'm going to introduce you to the 4 panelists we have today. And after that, we are going to watch a small 10-minute video, which is going to describe the incidents that the panelists have been through personally. The first panelist for today is Shui-Meng. Shui-Meng is the wife of a disappeared Laoan activist, Sombath Somphone. He has not been seen since December 2012. He was kidnapped. Shui-Meng has CCTV video footage of the government agents taking her husband in front of a police post, but the officials there refuse to admit any complicity. We know that Laos is a communist one-party dictatorship, and Freedom House ranks it as the worst of the worst in terms of fundamental freedoms. Her husband, Sombath, is an internationally acclaimed community organizer and a civil society leader in Laos. Since his arrest, Shui-Meng has campaigned around the world for her husband's release, but to no avail. December 2021, Shui-Meng has completed a book called Silencing of a Laotian Son, The Life, Work and Enforced Disappearance of Sombath Somphone. Right now, she is seeking to translate her book into other languages to reach out and make the world aware of the tragedy that she's had to face. The second panelist for today is Susanna Liew. Liew was the principal of a school. Her husband, Pastor Raymond Koh, a pastor in Malaysia, in 2004 started the Hope Community to help the poor. In 2017, her husband's car was surrounded by some matching cars and SUVs, and he was abducted. The security camera footage shows 7 vehicles, including 2 motorbikes, and they closed the road, and the abduction was done in broad daylight. It was videographed. And since today, we have not heard anything of Pastor Raymond Koh. The third panelist for today is Mr. Rama Ramanathan. Rama Ramanathan is from our sponsor as well, that is the Cage, what Varana just introduced us to. He was born and brought up and educated in Malaysia. He went to the Edinburgh University in Scotland to study engineering. Graduating in 1982, he worked in rubber and consumer products and the medical device industries, both in Malaysia and overseas. In 2014, he retired as a head of quality in Asia Pacific region for a global medical device company. And he's had a career shift from then, and he's looking at catalyzing change in Malaysia. He served for 5 years as a member of the steering committee of VERSI, which is Malaysia's movement for free and fair elections and democracy. And now he's taken up his present role as a spokesperson of Citizens Against Enforced Disappearances, known as CAGED, C-A-G-E-D. He's researched and written extensively about parliamentary practices, deaths in custody, and independent police commissions. Our fourth panelist for today is one who has actually been through and come out of an enforced disappearance scenario, and that is Simon Chang. Simon Chang, born in 1990, is a Hong Kong activist. He was formerly a trade and investment officer at the British Consulate General in Hong Kong. Cheng was detained by Chinese authorities in August 2019 in a West Kowloon station when he returned from a business trip in Shenzhen. The Chinese authorities stated that he was arrested for soliciting prostitutes. Cheng denied the accusation and added that the Chinese agents tortured him in an attempt to make him confess that he was a British spy. And he was involved in instigating the 2019 Hong Kong protests. Cheng is right now in London, where he's been granted asylum since 2020. I'm not going to say more, but I'm going to leave all of you here to watch the video that Spencer has put out, Spencer and Douglas have put out for us. And after that, we will return to the panelists to hear from them. Over to you, Douglas.
On December 15, 2012, Sombath Somphone, a Lao educator and development worker, was abducted in front of a police post in Vientiane, the capital of the Lao People's Democratic Republic, one of the last remaining communist states left in the world. His kidnapping was recorded on police CCTV, and a copy of it quickly went viral. The footage stunned the world. The Lao police and the Lao government denied any involvement. This is Sombath's story.
Kapital ชื่อสมบัติสมพรเป็นลูกสาวไฮโซนาธรรมดาแต่มีโอกาสได้ไปเรียนมีโอกาสฝึกการคิดก็เลยมาคิดแล้วเกียมจะตอบคำถามของหลานอยู่แล้ว
I met Sombath around 1976, immediately after the end of the Vietnam War.
In the early 1970s, people in Laos were just simply fed up with the Vietnam War. There was a widespread feeling that they had had enough of war, that Lao, as good Buddhists, should not be killing other Lao, and all they wanted was peace.
My first impressions of Sombath were that he was a really committed and dedicated person to have come back to Laos. I had come from working with refugees, and it seemed like it was a one-way street of Lao people who are leaving the country, and here was a guy who had instead chose to come back.
Actually, Sombath was convinced that Laos could be a model for an alternative development, that there were other ways of doing things, where you can reduce poverty, but also empower the people for their own development.
ภายหลังเหตุการณ์ที่ว่าไอ้สมบัติหายตัวนี้ในสังคมนี่ส่วนใหญ่ก็ย่านและก็คนหนุ่มคนสาวนี่หลายคนก็บ่อยากเว้าถึง
I met Sombath at the University of Hawaii. We were students, and I was always with a group of friends from Vietnam, Cambodia, and he's a Lao, so he joined us on some occasions, and we became friends.
He disappeared on August 8th as he was returning to Hong Kong from mainland China. Simon Chen is an investment officer at the Scottish Development International section of the British Consulate and was on a one-day business trip in Shenzhen. He is holder of a British national overseas passport, which China doesn't recognize. Now his family and friends are calling on the British government to take action.
Mr. Boris Johnson, I like you and I believe in you. Ms. Nicola Sturgeon, Simon was promoting Scotland in his duty travel and he's being captured. I urge you to, and all the MPs and all the Brits, save Simon. Saving Simon is your #1 priority now.
The Chinese Foreign Office has confirmed that Simon Chen is being held in what it's calling administrative detention in Shenzhen for an initial period of 15 days, but didn't explain why. Simon's family says it hasn't received any notice of detention. The last time Simon Chen was heard of is when he wrote a message to his girlfriend saying that the train was approaching the West Kowloon station. It is in Hong Kong, but it's manned by Chinese immigration officials. Border checks are conducted here, not on the mainland, and Chinese laws apply. His family says it's from here that he was taken back to the mainland. The announcement of his disappearance comes as protesters stage a sit-in to mark 1 month since an attack by suspected gang members on them. It happened at the Wayne Long station near the border with the mainland. The attackers are said to be staunchly pro-Beijing. Simon's portrait is now on the wall among the victims of that day. Michael Moss says he's not surprised his friend Simon has been detained.
Simon had involved in some academic related activities, some academic forums, seminars, etc. Of course, those seminars or those forums would have a particular stance on the constitutional reform or the way how Hong Kong moves forward in terms of political development, and it makes quite sensitive.
Simon's lawyer says he hasn't been able to locate him, but his case is likely to feed into the anger and suspicion among protesters who fear Beijing's growing influence in Hong Kong. Huda Abdul Hamid, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.
Thank you, Spencer, for that video. I think a good bit of us who come from robust democracies, would find this extremely disturbing and shocking that there is absolutely no recourse to such an action being taken by or in connivance with the lawmakers. I would now ask each of the panelists to recount their story in their own words. Might I suggest that since we are a diverse mix of persons from across the globe, could some of you change your name to tell us where you're from, so the panelists would probably know who they are talking to as an audience? Would that be okay, Spurana, Spencer?
Yes, absolutely. All you need to do is to go to the participants, and there's the buttons call more under your name, and you can easily rename yourself a little bit.
So that way at least the panelists know who they're talking to from which part of the globe. It might just thank you, Gabby. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. So it's open to you now, Shui-Meng. Would you like to start?
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And first, I want to express my thanks to Spencer and for organizing this event for the Rotary Peace Network. I think today we will be speaking about the case of enforced disappearance. I don't know how many of you have heard about enforced disappearance. Frankly, until it happened to my husband, I knew very little about enforced disappearances, even though I do work in the UN. I worked with UNICEF before. And we know about a lot of human rights issues and so on. And enforced disappearance is not very, very widely discussed, even among development agencies, the UN working bodies, unless you are working directly on the issue of enforced disappearance. I agree to speak on this panel, partly because I'm excited and interested to have the issue of enforced disappearance reach out to as wide a public as possible. I may be wrong, but I assume many people in the Rotary networks may not themselves have encountered issues of enforced disappearance. So I'm happy to bear witness to this very, very inhuman crime. As I say, I did not know very much about enforced disappearance until it happened to my own husband. I had never imagined something like this would happen to a family member. It's so outside my realm of consciousness that after it happened, I read a lot about it. Initially, I was in complete state of helplessness. I didn't even know where to turn, who to turn to. I went to the police, of course, hoping the police, who are the law enforcement body within the country, will help me. And especially when I found a camera recording of actually what happened to my husband. He was stopped by the police, he was taken by the police. Now I live in Laos. I assume that, oh, maybe they would take him to the police station because they want to ask for some information. And then I will see him in a day or two. So I went to the police, who actually are the very agents who abducted him, hoping that the abductors would help me. Unfortunately, what made me realize after quite a long time, a few months, is to realize that I've been knocking on the wrong doors. My husband has been taken by state agents, ordered by I don't know who within the state to take him, disappear him, withhold information about him from his family. And it's more than 9 years now. I have not seen him. I have not heard from him. I don't know whether he's alive. I don't know whether he's dead. I don't know if he's alive, the situation he's in. That is the most scary part and the most disturbing part of enforced disappearance. The lack of information, the lack of knowledge of what happened to your loved one. Even though you know, in my case, I have camera footages of what happened to him. In my research on enforced disappearance after the event, I came to realize that actually this kind of state acts were first done during the Nazi period, introduced by no less than Adolf Hitler himself, to use it to terrorize his enemies, or who he defined as his enemies, people he didn't like, oppositions or whoever, to take them away from their families and then disappear them without the family ever knowing who has taken their loved ones, who has kept them, and where their loved ones went. And this is what makes enforced disappearance so fearful, so frightening. In the video that you saw, after what happened to my husband, many people in the community didn't want to say anything, didn't want to even talk about Sombath, my husband, even though they knew him, worked with him before. They didn't want to say anything for fear that if they feel that if they are associated with him, that they too may face the danger of being taken away in the same situation as my husband, then a wall of silence falls around us. This is one of the most painful things, to see that people you know wouldn't want to bear witness, wouldn't want to say anything. They wouldn't even want to acknowledge that they are our friends. I used to know a lot of people in this society. I know people even within the government, many people within the government that we work with, friends, and even families. Sometimes even family members, in order to protect their own safety, deny that they actually know you or are close to you. And in fact, in the past 9 years, I have met many other victims of enforced disappearance, just like myself. And I can tell you a few of the common characteristics. Enforced disappearances normally happen, and that in many cases there are witnesses, like in the case of what happened to Pastor Raymond Koh, what happened to my husband. We have even concrete evidence of what happened, but the authorities would deny any knowledge and will completely wash their hands off the case. So for victims like myself and other wives or family members, they feel that they are facing a wall, a thick wall that you cannot even crack. How do you crack the wall? We as common citizens, we live in, live as ordinary citizens. We think, or I used to think, the law protects us. What do you do if the law doesn't protect you? And the lawmakers actually are the perpetrators of that abuse. They make the law and they break the law, and then you have no recourse to any law. What I have come across is, unfortunately, this incident has made me become very cynical when I hear the terms of rule of law. What is the rule of law? When the people who write the law abuse the law, the power makers do not want to help the powerless. I feel that I'm a few lucky ones in the sense that I have resources and also the ability to reach out to meet many different people, different networks who work on issues of enforced disappearances. But I have met thousands of ordinary women, and most of them are women, because most of the people who are abducted happen to be men, leaving the wives or the mothers or the sisters to pick up the pieces. And many of them have no recourse or no ability to even access or understand what the law says, or go to the UN or find the necessary networks of organizations to help them to bring the issues of what happened to their loved one to light. They are also helpless economically, because normally the person who is abducted is the breadwinner. And the breadwinner is taken away from the family, leaving the wife, who then may have young children, to have to take care of the children, to then find food to put on the table, to sustain the family. This is why the crime does not only affect the person who is abducted, but the victims are the family members, the community itself. We form a big group of associated victims. We are also the victims, even though we are still free as of today, but anything can happen to us. And the other issue about enforced disappearance is that it can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody. it's just, you don't even know whose toe you have stepped on, what did you do? People assume that those people who are disappeared must be, rebel rousers, political opposition, those who fight against the state. No, it's even to ordinary people who may write things in an article that somehow displace some people in authority, say some things that they don't like, or do something like helping the public, helping the community, being the voice of the voiceless. Any of that can make them become a victim of enforced disappearance. I hope, I know that my time is very short. Is my time up yet? How many minutes do I have? Anyway, I'm about to close. I just want to say to the participants that don't think that you are safe from enforced disappearance. You don't know when it will happen. It may happen to you or your family member or someone you know, and it may happen anytime. We cannot be complacent with respect to this violation of human rights. Enforced disappearance is also a crime of impunity. It is clearly a crime of impunity because the perpetrators go free and the victims have nowhere to turn, nowhere to go, except to speak about what happened to them on events like this. And in my case, this is why I wrote the book. I wrote a book about what happened to my husband. I want to bear witness to his life. I want to give credibility and value to another human being who happens to be the man I love very much and happens to be to the man I call my husband. Thank you.
Thank you, Shui-Meng. That was very, very brave. Thank you for being here with us. I'm going to request the participants here, if they have any questions for the panelists, if you could keep typing it on chat as the panelists are speaking, and maybe when all the panelists are finished speaking, we could raise these questions with them. So I'd like now to move to the next speaker, Susanna.
John?
Susanna, you wanted to share something on a slide, right?
Hello. I want to, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Susanna.
Okay,
Please go ahead.
yeah. I have some slides, but I'm having problem showing it. But yeah, I will just go ahead. Thank you for inviting me. And it's a privilege to share what you saw the video clip just now of how my husband's car was surrounded by 3 black SUVs, almost 10 to 15 men in black balaclavas, abducted him violently, and it looked very much like a military operation. And we have not heard nor seen him since. In this, it's already been 5 years, and we have not got any news from the police, and therefore in 20 March, February, we filed a civil suit against the police and government. and we want to know the truth of how a Malaysian citizen could be adopted in broad daylight. Someone who is a good person and helps the poor, the marginalized. And later we found out that there were 3 other people who were also adopted. And we realized that there was a common thread in these adoptions, and they were religiously motivated. So what we are hoping for is that the case, the trial that will be coming up in December, end of this year, and in June 2023 will shed some light into this. And what is my encouragement to all of you, the participants, is that be active, you be intentional about knowing more about what happened, to enforce disappearances, and continue to highlight these cases, as I believe that all this is a violation of human rights according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There is a freedom to movement, freedom to speech, express yourself, your belief, your conscience, and all this. Even there is freedom to counsel, to appear before the law. If the person done anything, he has the right to appear in court. So all these are a violation to human rights and a crime towards humanity. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Susanna, very much. That was indeed a very moving account. We would get back to you with some questions as we are done with the other panelists. Can I now ask Rama Ramanathan?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining this event. You saw the video of the abduction of Pastor Raymond Koh. It went viral. It woke people up to the practice of abductions by the Malaysian authorities. Stories began to circulate of many earlier abductions attributed to state operatives. We heard of the abduction of the Shiite Muslim activist Amri Chekmat in the northernmost state of Perlis, and of the Muslim apostate Joshua Hilmi and his Indonesian wife Ruth Sitepu in Selangor, the same state from which Raymond was abducted. Joshua not only became a Christian, but also a pastor and evangelist. Amri's disappearance was investigated by SUHAKAM, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, together with Raymond's disappearance. In April 2019, SUHAKAM concluded that both Amri and Raymond were abducted by the special branch of the Malaysian police. SUHAKAM will announce its conclusion in the case of Joshua and Ruth in the next few weeks. The cases of Amri, Joshua, and Ruth have been well reported, so I'll not tell you about them. Instead, I'll tell you about lesser known cases. I'll tell you about abductions of Turkish nationals residing legally in Malaysia. On the 14th of October 2016, the Foreign Minister of Turkey, Mevlut Cavusoglu, said, "Last night we received 3 terrorists from Malaysia. 2 of the 3 alleged terrorists were Aletin Duman and Tamer Tibik. They were members of the Gulen movement, which had been a partner of Turkish President Erdogan's AKP party. That movement had accused Erdogan of corruption and was suspected of playing a role in the 2015 Turkish coup. Duman and Tibik had been legally residing and working in Kuala Lumpur. On the 13th of October 2016, Duman and Tibik were reported missing in Kuala Lumpur. The police said they would investigate the cases, but the next day, Duman and Tibik were in Turkey. After the Turkish foreign minister made the announcement, the Malaysian authorities were forced to admit the truth. They had abducted the pair and quietly shipped them off to Turkey. The Stockholm Center for Freedom, SCF, interviewed Duman in a prison in Turkey. This is Duman's own account of his abduction. I left the mosque. I was heading home. As I passed the traffic lights, a minivan stopped and a Malaysian dressed in civilian clothes got out. He picked me up by my arm and tried to put me in the minivan. I resisted. I pushed him. There were 2 more people inside. They were also in civilian clothes and Malaysian. I thought they were human traffickers. A 4th person pointed a gun at me. I tried to get away from them, but they anesthetized me. When I woke up, I found myself in an abandoned building in a forest. My hands and feet were handcuffed. I was gagged. I had tape over my eyes. It was like I had been abducted by the mafia. I was tortured by 4 people in that building in the forest. At one point, I thought I was being held there for ransom and that I would be killed. They threatened me with a gun and they said they would throw me from the 2nd floor. They did not give me food or water. They tied me with a chain. They did not give any information about who they are and why they kidnapped me. Almost all day they tortured me. I was taken to the airport 29 hours after being abducted. Then the situation was clear. Turkish officials were involved in the game there. The Malaysians who kidnapped me delivered me to Turkish officials. I was flown with Turkish Airlines and brought to Turkey. I have been subjected to heavy torture for 23 days in Turkey while in custody. That's the story of Duman. Now I move on to the story of Karaman. Turgay Karaman was one of 3 Turkish nationals abducted in Kuala Lumpur in May 2017. Their families lodged missing persons reports. 1 week later, international media reported that the Malaysian government had handed all 3 of them to the Turkish government. The same SCF report says, although the police could not immediately establish their whereabouts, when the news of their abduction became a breaking story on international media, Inspector General of Police Khalid Abu Bakar said in a tweet on May 3rd that both Karaman and Arslan were arrested in connection with activities that threaten national security. Home Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said anti-terror police had been investigating Karaman and others for spreading, influencing, and funding ISIS-linked activities. The Guardian UK ran a story challenging that claim. It wrote, Karaman, who was the principal of a prestigious international school that promotes critical thinking, as well as holding his post with the Malaysian Turkish Dialogue Society, does not fit the stereotypical profile of an ISIS operative. His social media accounts promote books on topics from Turkish cuisine to Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam abhorred by hardline jihadists. On LinkedIn, he follows a global networking group for the LGBT community and their allies. What I've read to you is from page 22 of the SCF report. So, the video of the abduction of Raymond not only made Malaysians aware of the earlier abductions of Amri and Joshua and Ruth, it made us aware that abductions are part of standard operating procedure of the Malaysian police. I'll stop here. I'll be happy to take questions later. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rama. That was indeed a very, very shocking account. It not only appears as a standard operating procedure of one government, but multiple governments almost seem to be engaging in a conspiracy. That's indeed very disturbing. Thank you, Rama. I'll go to our last panelist for today, who I dare say I might term a survivor of an enforced disappearance, and that is Simon Chang from Hong Kong.
Thank you, Professor, and thanks for the invitation. And I'm very honored to be with all of you to share my account and witness. If I know that's only for 5 minutes, so I will just be very quick for this. I would like to share some slide with you. So my brief background that I studied in National Taiwan University, and I was the exchange student at Peking and Tokyo University. And previously I worked for European Chamber of Commerce in Taiwan. And afterwards, then I studied master degree from LSE in London. Then afterwards, then I worked for the British Consulate General in Hong Kong because I am Hong Kong citizens as well. So that time, when I worked for the British Consulate, that I'm responsible for trade and investment department. So that's the China proposed, that's a new idea of the one belt one road. So that time, because it's, around the David Cameron's golden era, so that's even the UK will be very care about the economic benefit from China. So there has a lot of staff who work with this for the economic plan with China. So also not only one belt one road, you can see it's very assertive, that's outgoing to other country, but also even in Hong Kong, they try to draft Hong Kong backwards to be a part of the mainland China. So that's they invent a new idea of Greater Bay Area. So Hong Kong, you can see economically speaking, is just a part of the Guangdong province. That's they single out 8 more other cities to be a part of the economic engines like Guangzhou and Shenzhen. So because of this, previously my job duty will be only focusing on Hong Kong, but because I work for business and trade, so sometimes I need travel to Guangdong and mainland China oftenly, especially in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. So that time, it's actually the pro-democracy protest happens in Hong Kong because that's the chief executive, the political leader of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, try to propose to legalize the extradition from Hong Kong to mainland China. It sparked a lot of Hong Kongers' uncertainty and fear because they don't trust the judiciary system in mainland China because there has lots of very concrete and detailed human rights abuses case on those human rights lawyers, dissidents in mainland China. So that's why the people they sit in to protest. And some of those because that's when the government tried not to listen to the voice of the people. They insist the policy. So also even that they send the police trying to suppress the people, then unfortunately the protest is going to be more and more confrontational. So you can see also it solved a huge and deep division within the society. Some of those people would think that Hong Kong is dying. So you can see the flag of Hong Kong turned red to black. And some of those that they think they're patriotic and loyal to China, it means that they're loyal to the party, the ruling party as well. So that time you can see that is the Hong Kong map. And you can see that they built a lot of the high-speed railway infrastructures. So from West Kowloon Terminus, which is in the downtown of Hong Kong, you could only spend 14 minutes to go to Vientiane. Vientiane is also the downtown area of Shenzhen, which is the border city next to Hong Kong, but also a part of the mainland China. So you can see, even we say one country, two systems, to most of Hong Kong, that the church about would be the specific freedom and much more, which is also the political system and judicial system could be more independent with rule of law. So that the people would hopefully to let the two systems to protect themselves with more freedom. And this is the outlook of the West Kowloon high-speed railway terminals. You can see is exactly in the downtown. So that was me. So you can see that is in downtown. So within the downtown, within the terminals, you can see that has two different ports. One is mainland port area, which means that they carve out the Hong Kong downtown land to the mainland Chinese law enforcement to execute the mainland Chinese law. So you can see that I have a floor plan. You can see the B4 and B3 is underground, and which is the floor which the law enforcement from mainland China could execute mainland Chinese law within the downtown of Hong Kong. So that time when I finished my business trip, then I actually back physically in downtown of Hong Kong, and I insert my ID card and then let me in, and then I need to give a fingerprint and do facial recognition. But however, I've been stopped, and I have been drafted out and put into the police station, and that police station is named West Kowloon Police Station from mainland China. So you can see they even have a police station from mainland China located in the central Hong Kong physically. So when I've been here, then I've been asked to deliver me back to Shenzhen. So I've been delivered from Hong Kong to Shenzhen and put it into Lenghua Police Station, just like here. And that time I feel unusual, because they asked me a very, very broad questions. First of all, they put me into the custody. They put me into the very small steel cell, and I can see they asked me a very weird question. For example, the first question asked me, what do you think, what do you feel about Hong Kong? And they try to narrow down to different questions and try to ask me, why would you like to go for the protest, and which protest you had joy, who you had joy the protest, and what's your how that's the UK to instigate the protest back in Hong Kong behind the scenes. So I gradually realized those people, they are plain cool officers, then they gave no badges to show who they are. Others that they could working for domestic security, which is internal oriented control, which means that they would target all those dissidents who deem to pose like a threat or criticize the Chinese leadership or Chinese governments, then they would just have a huge police force to monitor those people within mainland China. Or they are working for the state security, a much more external oriented control. It means that they're not only trying to espionage and get the intelligence for overseas, but also still that they could monitoring those dissidents overseas who deem to violate so-called political security of China. It means that they try to safeguard the authoritarian grip of the party still controlling over the people and make it safe. What the safe that they mean is the political or the regime is safe. So when I put into the steel cell, I put on the tiger chair. So this is the tiger chair. You can see that they would just buckle you up. You cannot move, and you can handcuff and attach on the table, and you can't move. And even that time, I haven't given any reason why I have been detained. So this is another photo. So this is steel cell. So when that time, they driving me around from one police station to another police station, they try to continue or extend the detention period for no reason. However, it's too complicated, so they hand me back over to a bunch of the uniformed officers. But still, those national security police would be around there. And that they said, well, Simon, you went to the massage parlor. But yes, I went to massage parlor, but I did nothing wrong. However, that's they said, based on external sources, we think that you solicit prostitutes. If you're not cooperative, we will hand you over back to those plainclothes officers, which hints you'd be politically charged further. So you would even treat harder. So that time, I had no choice. I have to confess what I didn't do. So that time when I confessed that I solicited prostitutes, that they would just prepare something, decision paper like this. And this kind of the decision paper, they need not to go through the courts. They would not allow you to access lawyer, and let alone that you can notify to your parents. So that's they prepare a lot of it, a pile of paper, but only on the front of the decision paper that they write something. However, they deliberately leave from when to when blank. And even the others' papers are all blank, but they still ask me to give the fingerprint on it. So it means that the paper on the front page doesn't matter, because that you still need to give lots of other fingerprints on a blank decision paper, so the police officers can write whatever they want afterwards. So that's, I would say, that's an arbitrary detention. And afterwards, then they put me back to the detention center in Lohu. So this is the what it looked like. So first of all, I put it into the detention center like this, and with about 14 inmates. They're very nice. They treat me very nicely, even share some food with me. I think that is my happiest moment in the whole detention period, because still that time, finally, I can talk with them, although their destiny would be hugely different because they might be released after a few days or maximally 15 days. But to me, it's uncertain because I've been politically interrogated. So always I've been asked out for interrogation, interrogation like this. But of course, they're not uniform, they're plainclothes officers. So that time when I've been asked out, I've been handcuffed, I've been shackled, I've been blindfolded, and I've been hooded. And then they asked me to wear my prisoner vest inside out to hide my all information. And then they dropped me over, they dropped me on the private van and asked me to sleep and lean on the back bench of the van. Then they just drive me to a unknown place because I can't see anything. Then they start to torture. So sometimes that they will hand me over like this. Sometimes that they ask me to do squat or stand still or just keep raising the hands up. And then your arms will feel sore, your legs will feel sore and painful, but leave no evidence. But if you can't do it, then they will beat you. And you're not even allowed to talk anything. When every time you need to talk, they will say, you need to say, report my master in Chinese Mandarin. It show it, you need to patriotic to your country, and that's why to your ruling party. And then when every time I can't do anything that they request, then they would beat me. And if I forget to say, report my master in Mandarin, then they will slam in my face. And sometimes they ask me to stand still. I can't move for countless hours because I have no concept of time because I've been blindfolded. Then they can't let me move. If I move, they would punish me to sing Chinese anthem. They said the Chinese anthem could wake you up. So it means they deprive my sleep every day. And then they prepare piles of the documentation. Then they gave me a piles of the photos for me to recognize those people they think that as protesters. And then they asked me to do confession videotapes and asked me to say, oh, I betrayed my motherland, I feel so guiltful, and I confess I solicit prostitutes because I'm too shameful. That's why I forgive to access my lawyer, I forgive to access my parents to talk about my situation. And of course, that I have to enforce to say there's no torture. Then afterwards, then they prepare two different decision paper. One is that if you're cooperative, they will let me out as proposed for 15 days. If you're not cooperative, including you speak what they said, what they asked you to say, then they would say you will be re-educated through sheltering. Then they would imprison me for 2 more years, and much more political charges like rebellions, like subversion would follow up, with following. So why that they would just ask me to confess the solicit prostitutes? Because the solicit prostitute, first, that they could keep stigmatizing any political dissidents against the party, and also because that is only administrative detention. So you are not allowed to access lawyer. You need not to go through the court, so no any third party will intervene. And also, you're not allowed to contact any parents, you know. So there's lots of other examples, like human rights lawyers Wang Chang. I talked to the Japanese media to say he also have been in torture in very similarly way. And also Li Mengju, a Taiwanese person who also have been detained and even until now cannot leave from mainland China since August 2019. And also Grandma Wong, which is also the very elder protesters in Hong Kong. She also had been detained for about half a year. Then she told the media afterwards, when they've been released, that she has been enforced to went for the patriotic trip in mainland China. So also I've been hunted by the state media of China, like CGTN, which is the overseas branch of the CCTV. And you can see that they're very biased, because on YouTube, even the title is Simon Chang, shame on you. So let alone others state media. And even you can see the UK ambassador to China, that they hold the Shi Bible and with China. And I feel a bit uneasy about the situation. And even back to Hong Kong, I keep being monitored. So there has some suspected Chinese agent that time in Hong Kong. And this time and that time in Taiwan, when I flew to Taiwan. And even now in London, in central London, I'm still keep being monitored and follow. And afterwards, then I've been put on the wanted list with others Hong Kong pro-democracy activists. And you can see that I also received some threatening letter to say Chinese agent will fight you and bring you back, just only a matter of time. So this is my account. Thank you so much.
Simon, that was like a story from the House of Horrors. It's shocking that such a thing would happen even in today's times. Thank you for being so brave to share this account with us. And I am right now going to go back to the first speaker of today and just ask some questions. And I can see that Spencer has put a question here to Shui-Meng. That is, while for the other cases there have been political motives, Sombath was a person engaging with civil society, and he was doing something good for the country. So what could be the possible reason for that disappearance? And also, I have a follow-up question for you, Shui-Meng, is that, are you not afraid for yourself now? In the context that you are actually bringing this out on the table, you're writing a book about it, you are taking on those very forces who have had the blatancy to engage in an enforced disappearance and cease to have any accountability. So could you just tell us in about a couple of minutes, what are your emotions at this point in time?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. I'll answer your question first. Why am I afraid for doing what I'm doing and being out there, telling the stories, writing the book, and so on, and bearing witness on not only this kind of forum, but other forums as well? Just to put in the context, I live in Laos now, but I hold a Singapore citizenship. I'm from Singapore. And I believe that, on the contrary, if I had kept quiet and be very silent, I think I will be more exposed and easily become a victim, because nobody knows. But because now Sombath's case is so well known, there's a documentary made of him, there's a book now, and I've spoken so extensively all over the world. His case is with the UN. I believe that to some extent, if something happens to me, if something, even an accident happens to me, there will be people questioning what happened. And I think the Lao government does not want to bear this kind of public exposure or being asked publicly on all occasions, whenever they go and have a report to the UN. I think for this reason, not for love of me, they have decided to let me be, because they also know I cannot do anything. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless in face of all the power. All I can do is to speak up. All I can do is to appeal. All I can do is to ask for support. But I'm actually, as far as they're concerned, I think I'm just not worth them to threaten me in any form. The question about the other activists who have disappeared in Laos, actually, the other people who have disappeared in Laos, many of them are also not people who have done anything openly to challenge the state, because in Laos it's a one-party system. Anybody who speaks up against the state openly know that they'll be in trouble. So the Lao people know they don't. Many of them, there are incidents of people who have disappeared who are residents in Thailand, for example, and they have spoken more openly. They have even like expressed solidarity with the Sombath case. When they returned to Laos, one person has been disappeared, and to this day we don't know where he is. There is another very well-known case, disappeared even longer than Sombath. He was owner of guest house in the northern part of Laos, but in that area there was a lot of land grabbing, and he spoke up on the issue of land grabbing, and he was invited to the police station, but on his way to the police station he was actually disappeared. His motorbike was found on the roadside. So many people I believe that the people who have been disappeared, most of them are not outright opponents to the state, but they may be, speaking up on behalf of people whose rights have been trampled on, their land have been taken, or they have, even Christians, in the case of Laos, Christian pastors have also been arrested, abused, tortured for a while, and then released. Even today, there are incidents like that. So to answer your question, it's not true that other people disappeared have done anything outrightly against the state, but they have also basically mostly have championed or spoken up for the people whose rights have been violated. In the case of Sombath, I think Sombath is well known to be a civil society leader. I believe that the government don't want anybody that they feel will have a following, so to speak, people listening to what Sombath has to say, or people will speak up more on the voiceless, like what Sombath has done. So I think he probably has been silenced because of his very well-known civil society role as a leader, and has a large following, especially among young people. So that's why I think he has been silenced, to warn the other people, the other Lao people, that if you are too much of a leader, you have a following, other people are listening to you, reading what you write, then the state doesn't like you. The state only wants one authority. The authority is the Lao Communist Party and the Lao government, which is the same, basically. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Shui-Meng. In fact, I know I can see there are some law students in the participant list here, and you are speaking out and telling us that if anything that is uncomfortable to the state, or anything spoken out against the state, not even against the state, if it's just uncomfortable to the state, that gives sufficient ground to the government to take action, either directly or through common law. So did you have any kind of recourse? And maybe even Rama, you could, when you're speaking, could address this question as well. Was there any forum that you could go to? So speaking from the Indian perspective, you have courts where you can file a habeas corpus writ petition if suppose a person is missing. So other than the police, would there be any kind of higher judicial authority which you could have approached to, or were the doors closed there as well? Just share with us some of your experiences on that front.
Yeah, right. We have approached the Prime Minister at that time, Dr. Mahathir, and visited at his office, and he said he will look into it, but there is no news. And also the Home Minister at that time, who later became Prime Minister, Sri Muhyiddin, he also said that police are under him, so he will get to the bottom of it. But again, we have not seen any result. On to the highest authority. So now we are going to the judicial system, the courts, to fight our case.
Thank you, Susanna. That must indeed be very, very frustrating in not having a forum to go to, and as you put it, when the lawmakers themselves are the lawbreakers, particularly in the context of the lawmakers are supposed to be our keepers of human rights, and they are the ones who violate it to that extent. A question for you, Rama, and maybe you could address the situation in Malaysia since you're familiar with it. Now you gave us a great example of there are persons who are wanted in Turkey, but who apparently feel that they are safe in Malaysia, but they still get picked up. So do you think the governments of the countries is short-circuiting the extradition process and kind of getting people when they want through either vigilante groups or through informal governmental channels? I mean, I'm using the word informal governmental channels. I really do not see one government writing a letter to the other to say, look, just send me these people in a surreptitious manner. So how common do you think this is? And is Malaysia really a safe place for somebody who thinks that I'm here and I possibly cannot be touched from my government? I mean, I'm asking this question in the context of from India, where we have certain persons who have taken certain economic offenders who have taken refuge in England and in the Caribbean islands. And, we've been trying for many years to get them back. So could you just tell us, how does the system work? Is it common? Is it exclusive to Malaysia and Turkey? Or is there more that we don't know?
Thank you. Let me first say that one of the issues that was discussed with Suhakam, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, and in fact, one of the recommendations that they put in their reports on the disappearances of both Amri and Raymond is that we need to amend the law in Malaysia so that there is legal recourse. Because right now, the only thing that someone like Susanna can do is make a police report. That's it. And, there are so many instances of people going to the politicians, the government of the day, and saying, can you intervene in this, that, and the other? And very often the politician says, well, we are under the rule of law, and it has to be the police that act, or the Attorney General that instructs. So yeah, I think that there really isn't much legal recourse here, and the law needs to change. The other thing is we don't have an independent police commission. So you can't even complain to an independent commission saying that the police didn't act. And you can't go to the courts in Malaysia and say, the police aren't doing anything, please order them to. Although there are cases, and there is a very famous case that's still ongoing. It's a case of a mother whose children were abducted by their father, and she's the wife. And this is the Indira Gandhi case, the Malaysian Indira Gandhi case. And she has actually gone to the courts and asked for an order of habeas corpus. So that option is there, but you need to be able to prove that the police have them. And of course, the police have the sole control of force and the powers to investigate and so on. So without a change in the law, there really isn't much that can be done. Now, coming to this question of, is Malaysia safe? Well, look, in broad daylight in the morning, in a residential area of Selangor, which is in Petaling Jaya, in fact. So it's a very kind of well-known area. You have 7 vehicles, 15 men, some of them in balaclavas. They abduct a person by boxing him in with 3 large vehicles. They do traffic control. They videotape what's going on. And the police agree that it's not a fabricated video. The police agree that this is really an event that happened. And yet the police don't really bother to follow up on this case. And then, like I said, we have all these other cases that we have now. The case of Amri Sheikh Mat, where the evidence that was given to Suhakam by witnesses, including police witnesses, basically said they can't be bothered to investigate. So let me say that some years ago, when I worked for a very large US multinational, I was asked to attend a conference in Rio in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And I was told, and I was sent this, several pages of instructions. And they said to me, you will need to be guarded by these 2 armed guards the whole time you are there. You are not to go out of the hotel. You're not to do this, you're not to do that, blah, 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 because you might be abducted. And my answer to that was, well, why did you choose to have this conference Rio? I'm not going. So I refused to go. So I would just say, when you have this happening, and these are very high profile, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia has determined that it was the special branch of the Malaysian police that certainly abducted Raymond and Amri. I think people have to make this decision. And now we know so many other cases. So I think people have to make a decision about whether or not Malaysia is safe. So I think that is a call that others will have to make. I know what decision I made in the case of Rio in Brazil. I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Raman. Thank you very much for that very clear explanation on how the situation does work. Simon, there's a question for you. I don't know whether it's a very nice question, but still it's a question is, why do you think they released you? Now.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a question of like why, but it's like how come they released you?
Yeah, because
and also we've got about 3 minutes more remaining, and if you could just back up an answer, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know what exactly is the future of the young persons like you in Hong Kong now. I mean, as we see a changing geopolitical scenario in Central Asia, which is definitely going to impact West Asia. If you could just, what is your take on a young person like you in Hong Kong? What does he do in the future?
Yeah, first of all, that is also lots of people, they ask why I'm so lucky enough to be released, because there has almost 99% of those have been handled by Chinese National Security Police will be almost certainly will be put in jail for many years. I think that my case would be a bit exceptional or unusual, because first of all, that time the Sino-British relations is not that bad. That's comparatively, even amongst the Five Eyes Alliance in the West, that's the UK that time would be still being quite a bit moderate to China. Then that's why when the matter or my case have been escalated, then is the UK diplomatic interference or a negotiation. I think that would be part of the reason that they paid more attention. And secondly, I think that time because like my friends reported to the media, and it becomes, when I've been detained in the second week, that it becomes the global headlines, which that is shocked a bit National Security Police that they're out of the expectation that it could, that the international society would be paid more attention on it. so that I feel the media and the global headlines makes them to feel pressure. So because when I'm seeing that the media exposure in the second week, exactly the date that my torture had been stopped, and try to ask me to do the enforced confession videotape. So when I being requested to do enforced confession videotapes, I knew that is a chance for me, because at least that they feel pressure, so they need to do some public relations stuff. So I think that is a positive trend that time even. And the third one is that they also haven't realized that my case have been detained in mainland China. It would trigger way more Hong Kongers that time went on the street for demonstration. They haven't, the top leadership of China haven't made up a very tough decision or make up their mind to totally suppress the people that time, then still the protest is gonna be actually that time's very at a very sensitive timing. So I do believe that they tried not to trigger even further backfire of the people, because that time what I heard, even some of the people that they would have demonstration outside the British consulate, and also even some of those that they would target those Chinese police station. So that's why that they feel, oh, I wanted to cool it down. That's why they decided to release me. That's my speculation, because I never ever known. I haven't get a chance to access any internal decision making of the Chinese authority, but that's what I guess. And to your second questions, that for those Hong Kong activists, especially young protesters now in jail, I think back in Hong Kong now is still a little bit blink, because when you see, even after my release, less than a half year, the national security law has been imposed in Hong Kong. When I express my account, not so many people that believe it. They think it's so dramatic that Hong Kong people could be experienced like this. But however, less than a year, when I say the National Security Police, which Hong Kong people maybe not familiar with those people because they're secret police, then if they said they were coming down to Hong Kong very soon and now becoming undeniable reality, then gradually, bit by bit, they are aware of the usual judicial system of China that they're working. However, when now I'm in exile because I've been granted asylum in the UK, we actually, as a part of the very vibrant international lobbying front and to develop the international diaspora of Hong Kong people, we still continue and succeed the pro-democracy momentum. So I do hope, for example, even in these 2 days, what we stand with Ukraine people and also those Hong Kong people now in jail for trial detention for already at 1 year. Some of those pro-democracy politicians ran for the primary of Hong Kong and now have been detained for a year. We will still have lots of protests for that. And we'll just keep it to make the media aware of this, and we're waiting if there's any change of the international relations. And we still believe we have unconditional faith. We could be back to our hometown with democracy and freedom one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. That was ending on a very positive note. And also, as we see that the Security Act has come about in Hong Kong, we also, as Purna mentioned earlier, Thailand, due to the United Nations scrutiny, has come up with a law against torture and enforced disappearances. But we would have to wait and see how effectively it is put up in place in terms of implementation. We're about 2 minutes outside our closing. I think we need, Spencer, you need a couple of minutes to wind up, right? So I'll just hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kishujan here. Yes, we are kind of running out of time, but I think time is just an essence, but the most important thing is the content and qualities of our discussions here. And if I may, I would like to ask some questions actually to the floor. You mentioned that there's some law students, young law students here in the participants in here. Feel free, I would like to hear your voices in hearing these sessions about the cases in here. How do you feel from their experience, and you know, what do you see about the futures of our societies? Again, it's open to everyone and the students, so please feel free. I think we can spend that for 3 or 4 minutes, no problem. Anyone?
I think Abhilasha has put up on chat, how can we prevent and seek justice for enforced disappearances? That's what Abhilasha has put up.
May I say something about what we can do? I think, as I mentioned, enforced disappearance, it's not so well known. It's good that I think one way is to get the issues out there so the victims don't feel that they're so alone. And if society, not just only those people who work on human rights or human rights-based organizations work on the issue of enforced disappearance, but ordinary people, on the street, if you hear about cases like this, write about this, go to your local governments, seek justice for the victims, right? Even if you don't know them. If more people speak out, more people express their anger and their outrage against a crime like this. Normally, as I say, many of them are in full face of with a lot of witnesses and so on, but nobody speaks out for them. And they will use excuses like, oh, because we don't have a law on enforced disappearance in our local law code, or this or that. This is where citizen power can perhaps help prevent and provide some solidarity to the victims of enforced disappearance.
Thank you, Shui-Meng in here. I put it on the chat some information about Thailand. Thailand just recently about to pass a law about tortures and enforced disappearance in here. Feel free to take a look at the cases. What Rama mentioned as well, and Akishi also mentioned here, the rule of law, the execution of law is fundamental in the protection of the citizens. And the government have every right, in my opinion, to do what they think they should be right for the citizens in here. What Shui-Meng's mentioned in here, that the citizens do have the power to move forward and protect your country and environments in this area. And we are hopeful that things will be turned around with the next generations coming forward in here. On this note in here, that we mentioned that Shui-Meng wrote a book about her cases in here, and she would like to kind of like raise some sponsorship money, you know, to have the book translated into different languages for Asians in here. If anyone would like to help Shui-Meng's in have the book translated and published for the betterment of other countries, peoples in here, please contact me, and I have my email address there as well. On this note, I'll pass the closing to Susanna. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. With this, we have come to the end of this event. I thank all the panelists who shared their experiences. Your sharings are really moving. Feeling insecure and unsafe in one's own birthland, also to be not sure of seeing our loved ones again each day they step out of homes, are probably kind of worst fears. I thank everyone for openly sharing and educating us. I thank the organizing committee and all the participants for making this event a successful one. Before we close, may I take a moment to inform you of our upcoming event. in commemoration of all victims of chemical weapons on the occasion of the attack on Halabja. March 16th is the anniversary of the chemical attack on Halabja. Our tentative event date is on March 12th. Hope to see you all again at the next event. For more information about all our upcoming events and activities, follow us on our Facebook page and or subscribe to our mailing list. Links for both are given in the chat window. Thank you. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you. Thank you. In that case, so we're going to officially close the event. Again, please keep in touch with us. And we do have other events coming along as well, and taking opportunities as well. On behalf of the association, I thank all the panelists here, teachers and moderators, and our members as well in supporting this event. And I wish you all a very good evening in Bangkok times in here, a very good day. Thank you. And bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.